May 8, 1945. The smoking ruins of Berlin lay silent as Soviet forces consolidated their grip on the Nazi capital. In a bunker beneath the Reich Chancellery, General Wilhelm Keitel signed Germany's unconditional surrender. But 2,000 miles away, in a classified debriefing room at the Pentagon, American intelligence officers were reviewing documents that would change their understanding of the entire war. Among the captured German records was a single file that made seasoned military analysts stop cold. The 8.8-centimeter flak gun had destroyed over 500 Allied tanks during the course of the war, making it statistically the most lethal anti-tank weapon ever deployed. What the Americans discovered in those documents defied everything they thought they knew about German defensive capabilities. This wasn't just another artillery piece. This was a weapon system so devastatingly effective that it had single-handedly altered the tactical doctrine of every Allied army that encountered it. The mathematics were staggering and undeniable. One gun type had accounted for more tank kills than entire panzer divisions. The story begins not with military genius or advanced metallurgy, but with a fundamental misunderstanding of what constitutes defensive firepower. In 1933, as the Nazi Party consolidated power in Germany, military planners faced a critical problem. The Treaty of Versailles had forbidden Germany from developing anti-aircraft weapons. But the growing threat of enemy bombers demanded a solution. What emerged from German engineering workshops would prove to be far more than anyone anticipated. The 8.8-centimeter flak gun entered service as an anti-aircraft weapon, designed to shoot down high-altitude bombers at ranges previously thought impossible. German engineers had created a marvel of precision engineering that could engage targets at altitudes exceeding 30,000 feet with devastating accuracy. The weapon specifications were impressive enough on paper, but nobody predicted how those same characteristics would translate to ground combat. When German forces first deployed these guns during the Spanish Civil War in 1936, they were intended purely for air defense. Republican aircraft fell from the sky with alarming regularity, but observant German officers noticed something else. The weapon's high velocity and flat trajectory made it extraordinarily effective against ground targets as well. Tank armor that could deflect conventional anti-tank rounds disintegrated under the impact of the 88's shells. The revelation came during the early campaigns of World War II. German commanders discovered that their anti-aircraft guns could penetrate the armor of any Allied tank at ranges that made return fire impossible. The psychological impact on enemy tank crews was immediate and devastating. They faced a weapon that could destroy them from distances where they couldn't even see their attacker. Allied intelligence initially dismissed reports of this superweapon as propaganda or battlefield confusion. British and American analysts assumed that German anti-tank capabilities followed conventional patterns. They were catastrophically wrong. The 88 possessed a combination of range, accuracy, and penetrating power that exceeded anything in the Allied arsenal by enormous margins. The gun's effectiveness stemmed from physics rather than mysticism. The high-velocity round traveled at speeds approaching 3,000 feet per second, carrying kinetic energy that could punch through a steel plate like tissue paper. More importantly, the weapon's optical sighting system allowed gunners to engage targets with precision at ranges exceeding 2,000 yards. Allied tanks were being destroyed before their crews even realized they were under attack. German tactical doctrine evolved rapidly to exploit this advantage. Anti-aircraft units found themselves reassigned to anti-tank roles with devastating effect. The weapons were positioned on reverse slopes in concealed positions and at choke points, where advancing Allied armor had no choice but to present itself as a target. The results were massacres that sent shockwaves through Allied command structures. During the North African campaign, British tank commanders reported entire squadrons disappearing under the guns of invisible German positions. Experienced crews who had survived dozens of engagements against conventional anti-tank weapons found themselves helpless against an enemy they couldn't locate or effectively engage. The psychological warfare aspect was as important as the physical destruction. The weapon's reputation grew with each engagement. Tank crews began reporting mechanical failures rather than advancing into areas where 80s were suspected. The mere possibility of encountering these guns was enough to halt Allied advances that should have succeeded based on numerical superiority alone. Fear of the 88 became a tactical factor that German commanders learned to exploit systematically. What made the situation even more frustrating for Allied forces was the weapon's versatility. The same gun that destroyed their tanks during the day shot down their aircraft at night. German crews could seamlessly transition between anti-aircraft and anti-tank roles, creating defensive positions that dominated both ground and air approaches. This dual capability multiplied the weapon's tactical value exponentially. Allied attempts to counter the 88 initially failed because they misunderstood the nature of the threat. Standard anti-tank tactics assumed engagement ranges of 500 to 800 yards with conventional weapons. The 88 operated at double or triple those distances, fundamentally altering the geometry of tank warfare. Allied commanders found themselves fighting an enemy that could see them long before they could retaliate, creating kill zones that stretched far beyond anything doctrine had prepared them for. The weapon's crew training reflected German precision and thoroughness. Gunners practiced range estimation until they could accurately gauge distance by sight alone. Loading drills were rehearsed until ammunition could be fed into the breech in seconds rather than minutes. Most critically, crews learned to exploit the weapon's range advantage by firing from positions that maximized concealment while maintaining clear fields of fire. Intelligence reports from captured German personnel revealed the systematic nature of 88 deployment. Gun positions were carefully surveyed and registered before battles began. Crews prepared multiple firing positions connected by concealed trenches, allowing them to relocate after engaging targets. This mobility prevented Allied artillery from neutralizing the guns through counter-battery fire, a tactic that had worked against static defensive positions. The psychological impact extended beyond individual engagements to strategic planning. Allied generals found themselves modifying entire offensive operations to account for suspected 88 positions. Routes were changed, timing was altered, and supporting fires were concentrated on areas where these weapons might be concealed. The mere possibility of encountering an 88 was reshaping how the war was fought. Field reports from tank commanders painted a grim picture of technological obsolescence. Sherman tank crews reported watching their shells bounce harmlessly off distant German positions, while enemy rounds punched through their armor with ease. The range disparity meant that Allied tanks often never got close enough to return effective fire before being destroyed. Soviet forces on the Eastern Front encountered the same devastating effectiveness. T-34 tanks that had dominated early engagements against German armor found themselves helpless against concealed 88 positions. Entire tank brigades were decimated in minutes by weapons they couldn't locate or engage. Soviet tactical doctrine built around mass tank assaults had to be revised entirely to account for this threat. The weapon's impact on Allied logistics was equally significant. Tank replacement rates skyrocketed as entire units were wiped out in single engagements. Training programs had to be expanded to replace experienced crews lost to 88 fire. Most importantly, Allied nations began crash programs to develop weapons capable of matching German range and penetration capabilities. German engineers continuously improved the weapon throughout the war. Ammunition types were refined to maximize armor penetration. Sighting systems were upgraded to enhance accuracy at extreme ranges. Manufacturing techniques were streamlined to increase production rates. Each improvement multiplied the weapon's battlefield effectiveness. The 88's success created a feedback loop that enhanced its reputation beyond its actual capabilities. Allied forces began attributing tank losses to 88s even when other weapons were responsible. This psychological inflation of the weapon's presence made it an even more effective deterrent as tank crews assumed every engagement might involve these superguns. Combat footage and after-action reports documented the weapon's devastating precision. Tanks were struck in critical areas with surgical accuracy, often through vision ports or weak points in armor schemes. This precision reflected not just superior optics, but extensive crew training that emphasized first-round kills rather than suppressive fire. The weapon's dual role as anti-aircraft and anti-tank gun created tactical dilemmas for Allied commanders. Air attacks had to account for these weapons while ground assaults faced the same threat. Coordinated air-ground operations became exponentially more complex when 80s were present, as the same defensive positions could engage both types of targets simultaneously. German defensive doctrine evolved to maximize the 88's advantages. Positions were chosen to create interlocking fields of fire that eliminated dead space where Allied tanks might find cover. Multiple guns were positioned to ensure that destroying one position wouldn't eliminate the threat. This systematic approach to defensive warfare multiplied the effectiveness of individual weapons. The technological gap became apparent through analysis of captured equipment. Allied weapons specialists who examined 80s found manufacturing precision and metallurgical quality that exceeded anything in their own arsenals. The German weapons industry had achieved production standards that Allied factories struggled to match, even with unlimited resources. By 1943, the reputation of the 88 had spread throughout Allied forces to the point where tactical planning automatically assumed their presence. Reconnaissance missions were devoted to locating these weapons. Specialized units were trained in techniques for neutralizing them. The entire character of tank warfare had been transformed by a single weapon system initially designed for an entirely different purpose. The 8.8-centimeter flak gun stands as perhaps the most devastating example of unintended military innovation in modern warfare. What began as an anti-aircraft weapon designed to circumvent treaty restrictions evolved into the most feared tank killer of the Second World War. Its 500-plus tank kills represent more than statistics. They tell the story of how technological superiority could overcome numerical disadvantage through superior engineering and tactical flexibility. The weapon's legacy extends far beyond its impressive kill count. It fundamentally altered how armies approached armored warfare, forcing allied nations to redesign their tanks, revise their tactics, and rethink their understanding of battlefield geometry. The psychological impact proved as destructive as the physical damage, creating a climate of fear that influenced strategic decisions at the highest levels of command. In the end, the 88 demonstrated that warfare's greatest innovations often emerge not from intended design but from creative adaptation. A gun designed to shoot down bombers became the instrument that forever redefined tank warfare. Its story remains a testament to German engineering excellence and a sobering reminder that in war the most dangerous enemies are often those you never see coming.